You ever look back at a moment and think, yeah, that was the exact second everything cracked? Not with a bang, not with some explosive blow-up, but just this quiet shift in the air, like the last leaf falling before winter really settles in. That's how it started for me. My name's Austin. I'm 29 now, but this all started a little over a year ago, back when I was still clinging to the fantasy that life had finally settled into something good. Steady job, decent apartment, the kind of friends who don't just bail after high school ends. And Emily, my fiancée at the time. We'd been together 4 years, lived together for 2. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew what we had. We were one of those couples people called solid. The kind that showed up to cookouts with matching flannel, hosted game nights, talked about future baby names while washing dishes. If I'm being real, maybe it wasn't fireworks all the time, but it was comfortable. Stable. I thought that was the point. Turns out, stable only matters until someone decides they're bored. I guess it all really began the weekend after my birthday. Emily's parents had come down to visit. They were always a little polished. Her mom, Lillian, wore pearl earrings even when we were just making spaghetti. Her dad, Roger, was ex-military and moved like a guy who ironed his socks. They never outright said they didn't like me, but there was this air of polite dismissal every time they stepped into our place. Like they were visiting their daughter in a college dorm, not a home she shared with the man she was going to marry. That weekend, though, something felt off. It was in the way Lillian kept saying things like, "Have you two thought more about the wedding date?" And "You're not getting any younger, Em." And every time she said it, Emily just laughed and gave this vague shrug. I figured maybe she was just overwhelmed. We hadn't set a date yet, but that wasn't some big red flag. We were waiting until we had a little more saved up. Weddings are expensive. Logical, right? Later that night, after her parents left, I found Emily sitting on the couch staring at her phone. She didn't even look up when I sat next to her. "You good?" I asked. She locked her screen and nodded a little too fast. "Yeah, just tired." And that was that. But something changed after that weekend. It wasn't anything dramatic. Just small things. She started working later than usual. Then came the excuses for skipping dinner together. The way she'd keep her phone screen angled away from me. You know how people say your gut knows before your brain is ready to catch up? I felt it. I just wasn't ready to admit it. The real slap came 2 weeks later. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch. I had just poured us both a glass of red wine, something we used to do when we needed to reconnect. I passed her the glass, and instead of clinking it with mine like always, she just stared into it. "I think we need to talk," she said. My heart did this weird twist. You know when someone says that, and your stomach drops before they've even said the rest? I already knew, but I still hoped it was something fixable. Maybe she needed space. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe she wanted to push the wedding another year. I could handle that. I could handle all of it, except what came next. "I feel like I haven't explored enough," she said, her voice way too calm. Like, I jumped into this too young. I've never been with anyone else. I cut her off, trying to keep my voice level. "What are you saying, Emily?" She looked at me with eyes that weren't hers. Cold, removed. Like I was just another task on her to-do list. "I need space to explore things with someone new." You know how in movies the guy yells, throws a glass, demands answers? I didn't do any of that. I just sat there, watching her like I didn't recognize her anymore. I think part of me shut off right then. I nodded, got up, walked to the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing. She followed me in, her voice shaking a little now. "Austin, wait. I'm not saying this is forever. Can't we pause things for a while? I just need time." I zipped the suitcase. "You're asking for time to cheat. It's not cheating if we're on a break." "We're not on a break," I said. "We're done." I didn't sleep that night. I drove straight to my buddy Caleb's place across town and crashed on his couch. The next day, I filed for a lease transfer and told my boss I was taking a week off. By the end of that week, I had packed up the rest of my stuff, cut ties with the city, and moved 3 hours north to a place where no one knew my name. No explanation. No closure. Just gone. Emily tried calling a few times, but I blocked her. Then came the texts. The guilt-ridden, "I miss you," and "I think I made a mistake" messages. I deleted them without reading past the previews. She had made her choice, so I made mine. For a few months, everything was quiet. I started over in this quiet little lakeside town, got a studio job editing videos for a marketing firm, met new people, went hiking on weekends, Even started learning how to cook more than just pasta. It felt like I was breathing for the first time in years. And then, one Saturday morning, 6 months to the day since I'd left, there was a knock on my door. I assumed it was the mail guy or maybe a neighbor, but when I opened it, I froze. Standing there were Emily's parents. Roger, stiff as ever in his blazer and jeans. Lillian, red-eyed, clutching a tissue like it was a lifeline. "Austin," she said, her voice breaking. "Please, just hear us out." I didn't say a word, just stared. "She's not eating," Roger added. "She's been in therapy. She realizes she made a huge mistake." I looked at them both, at the desperation on their faces. The irony that the same people who used to look through me like I wasn't good enough were now begging me to come back into their daughter's life. "She made her choice," I said, and I shut the door. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what I didn't know then was that Emily wasn't giving up. Not even a little. And what came next, it wasn't just messy. It was war. They didn't leave right away. I stood with my back against the door, listening as Roger knocked one more time. Sharp, controlled, like a man who expected things to go his way if he just applied enough pressure. Lillian said something under her breath, muffled by the door, probably trying to convince him to leave. Eventually, I heard footsteps fading and the soft crunch of gravel as their car pulled away. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But there was nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just this strange, hollow quiet. Like I'd finally closed the last open window in a house I used to live in. That night, I made steak for dinner. It wasn't great. I overcooked it, but it was mine. I sat on the couch, put on a documentary I didn't pay attention to, and muted every notification on my phone. A few hours later, I glanced at the screen out of habit and saw 37 missed messages. 5 from unknown numbers. 6 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. I didn't even open the app. But that was the calm before it all started to unravel. The first sign was my buddy Caleb texting me, out of the blue. "Hey man, you good? I heard Emily showed up in your town." I blinked. How the hell would he know that? I called him immediately. "What do you mean, she showed up in my town?" "She's been posting stuff online. Cryptic captions, sad selfies by the lake, stuff like that. People figured it out. She tagged some bookstore near your apartment. You think she's trying to find you?" I checked her account, one I hadn't looked at in half a year, and sure enough, there she was, sipping coffee 2 blocks from where I lived. Caption, "Starting over. Sometimes you have to go back to move forward." I blocked her again, but my gut was already turning. The next week, she ran into me at the grocery store. I was grabbing some produce when I heard someone say my name like they'd rehearsed it. "Austin." I turned, and there she was, Emily. Hair curled like she used to wear it on special nights. That same sad, hopeful smile I remembered from when we first started dating. She was holding a carton of oat milk she probably didn't even drink. "Wow," she said. "I didn't think I'd actually run into you." "You posted a photo from the cafe next to my building," I said flatly. She blinked, smile flickering. "I didn't think you'd see it." I didn't. My friend did. We stood in that aisle for a full minute, surrounded by potatoes and awkward silence. "I've been in therapy," she finally said, like it was supposed to explain everything. "And I've realized a lot. About myself. About us." I was scared. I thought I needed to figure things out by stepping away, but "You don't owe me an explanation," I cut in. "You made your choice." She looked like she wanted to say something else, but I turned and walked away. That should have been it. But it wasn't. A few days later, I got an email. Not from Emily. This time, it was from Lillian. "Austin, I don't mean to bother you, but I think you're being unnecessarily cruel. Emily made a mistake, but haven't we all? You've always been the kind, rational one. I expected more grace from you." That word, grace, made my skin crawl. As if I was the one being unreasonable for not welcoming her daughter back after being tossed aside like a placeholder. I didn't respond. But the messages kept coming. One from Roger, one from Emily again, and then a string of friend requests on all my socials from names I didn't recognize. Caleb called again. "You might want to check Reddit," he said. Sure enough, there it was. A post under r/true off my chest, written by a throwaway account, titled, "I ruined the best relationship of my life, and I don't know how to fix it." It didn't name me directly, but every detail was there. My job, the town I moved to, how we met. It painted her as someone lost and confused, who panicked under the pressure of commitment and briefly explored a new connection, before realizing what she'd truly lost. The comments were full of sympathy and advice. You sound so brave. Just keep trying. He'll see your growth. You didn't cheat. You were honest. If he loved you, he'd come back. One person commented, honestly, he sounds emotionally immature for just ghosting you. I felt my jaw tighten. I didn't ghost her. I protected myself. I took the blow and walked away without burning down the house. And now? Now I was being painted as the villain because I didn't want to re-enter a burning building? That was when I hit my breaking point. I called my landlord and asked if I could switch to a new unit in the complex, somewhere off the main road, not visible from the street. He agreed. I moved everything the next day. That weekend, I deactivated every account she might find. I scrubbed my LinkedIn, made all my socials private, deleted old photos. I stopped checking group chats where her friends might lurk. I even switched coffee shops. But somehow, it still wasn't enough. A month later, I got a call from my mother. Now, to understand why this mattered, you have to know something about my family. I grew up in a pretty tight-knit, middle-class household. My mom and dad were high school sweethearts who worked hard, loved harder, and believed in forgiveness to a fault. They liked Emily. A lot. She came to holidays. She made pies with my mom. Helped my dad build shelves in the garage. When we broke up, I told them a version of the truth, but I left out the worst parts. I didn't want them to hate her. I just said we grew apart. So when my mom called, her voice cautious, I braced myself. Honey, she said, I had a visit from someone today. My stomach dropped. Please don't say. It was Emily. She drove down. Said she just needed to talk to me. Said she couldn't get through to you. I closed my eyes. Mom, I told you. She cried, Austin. She told me you won't even speak to her. That she's in a dark place. That she doesn't feel safe being alone. I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to keep my voice calm. She's manipulating you. She didn't seem like she was acting. Of course she didn't. That's how she works. Mom was quiet for a long beat. I don't understand. You were always so forgiving. And there it was. That word again. Forgiving. Like I owed it to the people who hurt me to put myself back in their reach. She left me, Mom. I said. She told me, to my face, she wanted to explore being with someone else. And now that it didn't work out, I'm supposed to pretend like it never happened? I just want you to be happy. I am happy, I said, and I meant it. But it didn't matter. The seed had been planted. And not just in my mom. Over the next few weeks, I started getting weird messages from extended family. My cousin Jenna DM'd me asking, did you really abandon Emily without talking things through? My uncle sent me a chain email about forgiveness and second chances. It was like she was slowly turning the people in my life against me. People I hadn't even realized were reachable. She weaponized empathy, played the victim perfectly, and everyone fell for it. Except Caleb. He called one night and said, you need to draw blood, man. Not literally, but you can't keep being passive. You either shut this down publicly or she's going to rewrite the whole story. I didn't want drama. I didn't want revenge. But I did want peace. So I wrote a post. Not to drag her name through the mud. Not to humiliate. Just to reclaim the truth. I posted it under an anonymous account, laying out the timeline. No insults. No exaggeration. Just facts. Dates. Screenshots. A calm but clear breakdown of how someone can say they love you, then walk away the second it becomes inconvenient, and how manipulative it is to crawl back only when their exploration didn't pan out. It went viral. Thousands of upvotes. Comments pouring in. People sharing their own stories of similar betrayals. I didn't respond to any of them. I just watched. 2 days later, Emily deleted her post. 3 days after that, her Reddit account vanished. But that wasn't the end. Because just when I thought I'd finally put it all to rest, just when the air started to feel still again, I got another message. This one wasn't from Emily. It was from her new boyfriend. And what he sent me, it changed everything. The message came late, around midnight on a Thursday. I was brushing my teeth, half asleep, when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was an Instagram DM request from a name I didn't recognize, Michael K. 88. Hey, I think we should talk. I'm Emily's boyfriend. Or was. Just wanted to give you a heads up. She's not who she pretends to be. I stared at the message for a while, then tossed the phone onto the bed and tried to sleep. I couldn't. My thoughts kept pinging back and forth like a ball in a pinball machine. What could he possibly want to tell me? The next morning, I replied, what are you trying to say? He messaged back almost instantly. I could tell he was waiting. Long story. But you deserve to know what she's been doing behind your back. Can I call you? I hesitated. I didn't know this guy anything, but I was also tired of feeling like I was fighting a battle no one else saw. So I gave him my number. He called 2 minutes later. His voice was low, calm, the kind of voice that had clearly practiced this conversation in the mirror. He started slow, respectful. Hey, Austin. I just want to say up front I'm not trying to start drama. I didn't even know who you were until a week ago. Emily didn't talk much about you. Not really. She just said you dated and it didn't work out. I stayed quiet. He went on. We met on a dating app a few months after you guys split. She told me she was healing. I believed her. And for a while, things were good. But then little stuff started slipping. I noticed she'd leave the room to take calls. She hid her texts. She'd get weird when I asked about her past. It all felt off. He paused. A few weeks ago, I found her old journal. I know I shouldn't have read it, but something in my gut told me to look. And that's when I found your name. A lot. Pages and pages. She never got over you, man. She's obsessed. Still calls you her soulmate. Still talks about getting you back. Only she doesn't call it getting back. She calls it fixing her narrative. Like your silence is this stain on her story. I sat down on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to my ear, pulse thudding. Here's the thing, he continued. She told me she needed a break 2 weeks ago. Said she wasn't feeling emotionally aligned. I gave her space. Then I saw the Reddit stuff. That post about her ex? The one where she made herself look like the victim? Yeah, I recognized it. I called her out, and she broke down crying. Told me you were her true north. That she made a mistake, but she was going to get you back, no matter what it took. Said she'd already gotten your family to soften. I didn't say a word. I didn't have any. I left her that night, Michael said. But I figured you deserved to know what's going on. She's not just sad. She's calculating. He thanked me for listening, said he was sorry, and hung up. I sat there for what felt like an hour, staring at the wall. It hit me, then, not just what Emily had done, but how deeply it had wormed into my sense of identity. For months, I'd let her rewrite the story of our relationship. I let her guilt echo through my phone calls with family, through the concerned texts from old friends. I had been rebuilding my life, sure, but in the back of my mind, I was still playing defense against a past that refused to let go. That night was the lowest I'd felt since the breakup. And I don't mean dramatic heartbreak. I mean this quiet, gnawing ache. Like I'd been carrying a ghost on my back for months without realizing it. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick and sat on my porch in the cold morning air, staring at the lake. For the first time, I let myself feel it all. The betrayal, the anger, the humiliation of being turned into a story someone else got to tell. And then something strange happened. I felt relief. Not peace. Not yet. But this clear, unshakable sense that I was finally done being quiet. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a dramatic showdown. I wanted to live. And I wanted to do it loudly. The shift was slow but steady. I started by going back to therapy. I tried it briefly after moving, but stopped once things felt manageable. Now I knew I hadn't even scratched the surface. I found a new therapist, someone older, no nonsense. I told her everything, from the breakup to the manipulation to the phone call with Michael. She didn't coddle me. She gave it to me straight. You're allowed to leave people who hurt you, she said. Even if they say they're sorry. Even if everyone around you says otherwise. Especially then. I wrote that down. I started writing down a lot of things. At her suggestion, I started journaling, not about Emily, but about myself. My wins. My fears. My plans. It felt weird at first, like I was narrating my own life. But then I realized something. I was narrating my own life. For the first time in a long time. Work got better too. I leaned into my job, took on bigger projects. My boss noticed. A few months later, I got promoted to lead editor. I started mentoring some of the new hires, and it gave me purpose, something outside myself. Something that didn't have anything to do with the past. On the weekends, I hiked. Not to escape, but to explore. I started visiting trails I'd never tried, joined a local outdoor group. That's where I met Jamie. Jamie wasn't flashy. She didn't wear perfect makeup or rehearse her smiles. She laughed with her whole body and talked about books the way most people talk about movies. We didn't start dating right away. In fact, we were just friends for the first 2 months. But it was easy. Real. We'd sit at the edge of a trail and talk about everything, from childhood fears to dumb pet names. One afternoon, I told her about Emily. Not everything. Just enough. She didn't judge. She just listened. When we eventually did start dating, it wasn't a firestorm. It was a slow, steady warmth. The kind that didn't burn, it healed. But the rise didn't mean the past stayed buried. One night, about 8 months after the last time I saw Emily's parents, I got a call from my mom again. She sounded different this time. Hesitant, but not pushy. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she began. I blinked. For what? For not trusting you. For letting someone else's tears cloud what I know about my son. Turns out, Michael had posted his own version of the story a few weeks back. He hadn't used names either, but people connected the dots. One of my cousins saw it. Shared it with my mom. I just didn't know, she said quietly. I believed what I saw, but I didn't ask you how you felt. That conversation was another turning point. For the first time in a year, I felt like the balance was tipping back in my favor. Over the next few months, I started reconnecting with people I'd quietly distanced myself from. My cousin Jenna and I went out for coffee and talked like old times. My uncle, the one who sent that chain email, he wrote me a real apology. And through all of it, I never once reached out to Emily. I didn't need to, because something deeper had shifted. I wasn't trying to prove myself anymore. I wasn't carrying the weight of other people's opinions. I had built something that wasn't about survival. It was about becoming whole again. One night, I was watching Jamie draw in her sketchbook. She liked doodling random scenes from our hikes, and I realized I hadn't thought about Emily in weeks. Not consciously. Not in that aching, bitter way. It didn't mean I forgot. It meant I healed. But just when I thought the story had settled, when life had finally quieted into something peaceful, I got another message. From an unknown number. Just 2 words. We need to talk. I almost deleted it. But something about the timing, about the fact that everything had finally fallen into place, made me pause. Because what I didn't know was that Emily wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And what she wanted now wasn't closure. It was something far more dangerous. The message just sat there on my screen for a long time. We need to talk. No name. No emojis. Just cold text from an unrecognized number. I stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. For a moment, I even considered blocking it and going on with my night like nothing happened. I could have. I should have. But part of me, the part that had been rebuilding piece by piece, felt something stir. Not fear. Not even anger. Something sharper. Focus. I didn't reply. Instead, I did what I should have done long ago. I began to prepare. The next morning, I started with the basics. I pulled up my laptop and opened an old folder I hadn't touched since the week I left the city. Inside were screenshots, receipts, voicemails I'd downloaded, even the full text of the Reddit post Emily had made about me. I had saved them all back when things first started spiraling, when Caleb told me, "Keep your records. You never know how far someone like that will go." I hadn't known then, but now? Now I was glad I listened. Next, I created a new private folder, one for what was about to come. I started documenting. The new message. Michael's call. I even recorded a voice memo of me summarizing everything I remembered about Emily's visit to my mom's house, the messages from her parents, the fallout with my extended family. I wanted a paper trail this time. Not because I was scared of her, but because I refused to be caught off guard again. Later that day, I texted Caleb. "Still think I need to draw blood?" He replied instantly. "Been waiting for you to ask." I met him that evening at a dive bar just off the highway, a place with sticky floors and chicken wings so spicy they'd make you rethink your life choices. Caleb was already waiting in the back booth, a worn baseball cap pulled low and a grin that said about time. "So," he said, pushing a beer toward me, "you finally ready to play offense?" "I think she's about to start something again," I said. "And this time, I want to be ready." He leaned back. "You know I'm in. Whatever you need. Just tell me the play." I didn't have one yet, but I had an idea. The first step was gathering intel. I knew Emily. I knew how she operated. She never made a move unless she thought the odds were stacked in her favor. That message wasn't random. It was bait. And if she thought I was still the same person she could guilt into silence, well, she was in for a surprise. Over the next week, I did some quiet digging. Jamie helped, too. She had a background in digital marketing and knew how to track footprints online. Together, we combed through Emily's public social media, LinkedIn, and even a few Facebook groups where she'd been tagged. Most of it was harmless, performative stuff, selfies with captions about healing, inspirational quotes about forgiveness, vague references to growth and accountability. But then we found it. A now-deleted post in a private Facebook group for women healing from abandonment. Someone had screenshotted it and reposted it to another forum, criticizing how performative and toxic the original post was. I didn't recognize the username, but the writing? It was her. When a man abandons you without warning, you have every right to reclaim the narrative, especially if he's made you out to be the villain. Sometimes, all it takes is a little reminder of what was lost, a little pressure, a few tears in the right places. I read that line over and over. Jamie looked at me. She's planning something. Yeah, I said. She's going to try and corner me again. But this time she's not just trying to get back together. She wants to ruin whatever I've built since. And that was when the plan started to take shape. The next day, I booked a meeting with a lawyer. Not for anything dramatic. Just a consultation. I wanted to know what my rights were. What I could do if someone started spreading false stories about me, whether online or in person. I didn't name Emily, but the lawyer caught on quickly. She nodded, took notes, and gave me a few tools to keep in my back pocket. Start by making everything private, she said. All your accounts. Any business-related social media. Change passwords. Turn on two-factor authentication. And whatever you do, don't delete anything. If she's about to try something, you want the full timeline intact. I did all of it that same night. I even backed up my entire phone, photos, messages, call logs, just in case. And then I waited. It didn't take long. 3 days later, Caleb texted me a screenshot of a comment thread he'd found under a local news article. It was one of those fluff pieces about my company sponsoring a community park cleanup. My name had been mentioned, just once in passing. But that was enough. Below the article, buried in the comments, was a user account with no profile picture claiming to be an ex of someone at the company. The comment was vague, but suggestive. Funny how people can smile in public after the way they treat women. But I guess some abusers get away with it when they have the right friends. I felt my blood go cold. There it was. The opening shot. I checked the account. Brand new. No other comments. But the language was familiar. The phrasing. The weaponized vagueness. It was her style. She knew how to make things seem damning without saying anything outright. Just enough to plant a seed. But she didn't know I'd already planted my own. I took screenshots. Logged the URL. Then I reached out to the news outlet, flagged the comment for defamation, and got it removed within the hour. But the damage had already been attempted. She was escalating. And so was I. I made one final move that week. I wrote a letter. Not to her, but to myself. It was a full, honest breakdown of everything that had happened. From the night she said she wanted to explore things with someone new, to the moment I shut the door in her parents' faces, to the call from Michael. I wrote about the gaslighting, the manipulation, the way my family had doubted me. And then I wrote about the rebuilding, the therapy, the hikes, the new job, Jamie. At the end, I signed it. Austin James Carter. Not a victim, not a villain, just a man who finally took the wheel. I sealed the letter in an envelope and tucked it into my desk drawer. Not as evidence, as armor. Because when you know your own story, nobody else gets to rewrite it. The next Saturday, I finally replied to the message. What do you want? The typing bubble appeared almost instantly. Just to talk. One conversation. That's all I'm asking. I took a deep breath. You get 1 hour. Public place. You pick. I'll bring a witness. I expected her to balk. To protest. To argue. But instead, she said, fine. Sunday, 11 a.m. The place where we had our first date. Of course she picked that place. A little bistro in the city. Classy. Nostalgic. A set piece for her performance. That was fine. Because I wasn't going there to forgive. I wasn't going to cave. I was going to end it. For good. But what I didn't realize, what I couldn't have known, was that Emily wasn't coming alone. And what she brought with her would turn everything upside down. The bistro hadn't changed. Same brick facade with ivy clinging to the corners. Same little wrought iron tables with faded green umbrellas. The kind of place that tried hard to be rustic and charming and mostly pulled it off. I remembered our first date here. Emily wore a sunflower dress. She had laughed at my corny jokes, and I had walked her to her car like it was 1952. Back then, it had felt like something real was beginning. Now, it felt like something important was about to end. Jamie came with me, just like I'd said I would bring a witness. We sat in a booth near the front, backs to the wall, facing the entrance. Jamie wasn't just there for emotional backup. She was there to document. Her phone sat on the table, recording with the screen dimmed. Legal in our state, as long as one party knows. And I wanted this entire thing on record. At exactly 10:59 a.m., Emily walked in. She looked different, more polished than usual. Her hair done up, makeup precise, that fake sadness in her eyes that used to fool me. She scanned the restaurant, then spotted me and approached slowly, like a scene from a movie she'd rehearsed 100 times. When she saw Jamie, a flicker of irritation crossed her face. But she hid it well. "Austin," she said, forcing a smile. "Thanks for meeting." I gestured toward the chair across from me. "You have 1 hour. Start talking." She sat down, folding her hands neatly on the table, like she was about to present a case. "I'm not here to argue. I just want to make peace." I raised an eyebrow. "Peace?" She nodded. "I've done a lot of thinking. Therapy. Soul-searching. And I realized I needed to take responsibility. For how I hurt you. For how I let fear control me." Jamie leaned in slightly, expression unreadable. I waited. Emily continued. "But I also need you to understand that I was hurting too. I never meant to damage your life. And some of the things you said about me online, well, they weren't fair either." There it was. The shift. The attempt to flip the guilt, to turn the conversation toward her being misrepresented. A passive-aggressive way to say, "You didn't have to fight back." "I didn't lie," I said calmly. "Everything I said was true. You didn't deny it, either." She exhaled, dramatically. "Still, that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I want closure. I want us to part with understanding, not resentment." Jamie tilted her head slightly. "So why try to smear him online?" Emily's eyes flicked toward her. "Excuse me." The comment under the news article. The Facebook group post. "You didn't come here for closure, Emily. You came here because people started seeing through you." The mask cracked for a second. Just a second. But I saw it. "I don't know what you're talking about," Emily said coolly. "This is about healing, not accusations." "You want healing?" I said. "Then stop trying to control the narrative. Stop playing the victim. You made your choice. And when the consequences showed up, you tried to rewrite the story so you wouldn't have to sit in the mess you made." She opened her mouth, but I kept going. "You turned my own family against me. You used their compassion to paint me as cold and unforgiving. You manipulated strangers online to feel sorry for you. And when your little exploration didn't work out, you came crawling back, not because you loved me, but because I refused to play along." Her lip trembled. "That's not true." "It is true," I said, voice low but firm. "And I have proof of everything. The Reddit post, the messages, the voicemail you left my mom, even Michael's story, all documented, all time-stamped. So if you're planning to escalate this into some public crusade, just know, I'll respond. And this time, I won't be anonymous." Her face flushed red. She glanced toward Jamie, then back at me. "You're threatening me?" "I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." She sat back, crossing her arms. Her voice dropped, bitterness seeping through. "You really think this little girl beside you is going to make you happy? After everything we had?" Jamie smiled sweetly. "Oh, I don't need to make him happy. He already is. I'm just here to make sure you don't spin your lies again." Emily laughed, sharp and bitter. "Wow, you've really changed, Austin. You used to care about people's feelings." "No," I said. "I used to care about your feelings more than I cared about myself." She went quiet. "You don't get to rewrite the ending," I said. "You don't get to show up after months of damage and act like the savior in your own mess." Then I reached into my bag and slid a manila envelope across the table. She didn't touch it. "What is that?" she asked. "Everything you've done. Printed, documented, backed up in 3 places. The smear campaign. The manipulation. All of it. If you want to keep escalating, I'll use it. But if you walk away today, if you really want closure, it stays sealed." She stared at it, hands trembling. "I'm giving you a choice," I said. "Something you never gave me." She didn't say anything for a long time. Her gaze fell to the table, then to the envelope, then to me. There was no more mask. No more rehearsed sadness. Just silence. Finally, she stood. "You win," she whispered. "I'll stop." I didn't reply. She walked out without another word. Over the next few weeks, everything got quiet again. No more messages. No new Reddit posts. No weird phone calls to my mom or cousin. It was like she vanished. Michael messaged me once more just to say thank you. That after our meeting, she tried to reach out to him again, and he blocked her. He was moving to another city, starting fresh. Like me, my family, especially my mom, took some time to rebuild trust with. But it came. Slowly. Authentically. She apologized again, Not just for doubting me, but for expecting me to be the bigger person when I was the only one bleeding. Jamie and I grew closer, stronger. We took a road trip up the coast that spring, camped under the stars, talked about the future. She never tried to fix me, never treated me like some broken man she had to glue back together. She just stood beside me, let me grow. At work, I got another promotion. I gave a talk at a local college about finding resilience after setbacks. I shared my story, not with names, not with bitterness, but with truth. And one evening, I found myself back on my porch, watching the lake again. This time, it wasn't about mourning the past. It was about witnessing the peace I'd earned. Emily never reached out again. Not directly. But about 6 months later, a mutual acquaintance mentioned she'd moved out of state. New job. New circle. Her social media had gone silent. No more healing posts. No more cryptic quotes. Maybe she learned something. Maybe she didn't. It didn't matter. Because I had. I learned that boundaries are love. Love for yourself. That silence is power when it's intentional. That revenge doesn't have to be loud or cruel. It can be calm, quiet, icy with truth. And that sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well, while they watch everything slip through their fingers, and never giving them a second chance to touch your life again.